Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome into episode number 6 of the Pat White Show. Today we're going to be covering a number of topics, including P. Diddy and trying to get a $50 million bail, the Richard Elan conviction that happened down in Delphi. Is Dion going to the SEC? Yep, going to talk about that. And of course, the top 10 cities you can retire in the U.S. One of them's kind of interesting. We'll talk about that. The Chicago Bears are still looking for a home. Yeah, they're still looking. I'll explain that. Susan Smith stays in prison, and ain't a bad idea. And Daniel Penny's trial is still going on in New York, and I can't tell you why. And then, of course, Morning Joe goes down to meet Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. Well, that didn't go too well. And the Elan and Vivek show is starting to begin. And finally, what on earth is the 4B movement? If you haven't heard about this, you got to listen. All of that's coming up right now on today's edition of the Pat White Show. Well, I don't know if you're a fan of P. Diddy, Sean P. Diddy Combs. I'm not a fan of his, but as you may have heard, he's been busted on a big nationwide, some sort of sex trafficking ring. Not sure of everything about it because I don't really follow this stuff because I'm not interested. But here's what I do know. He's cooling his heels in a jail in Manhattan, and he's trying to get out on a bail. Right now, his attorneys are going to be proposing to the judge a $50 million, you heard me right, $50 million bail. I don't know anybody who's got $50 million except, I don't know, maybe Elon Musk and or Mr. Bezos of Amazon. But anyway, here's the problem. According to the prosecutors who monitor his phone calls, he's been calling people and trying to get them to change their stories, move the narrative, as they say, and coercing potential witnesses and literally saying, hey, you better not say anything. This is what Sean P. Diddy Combs is stupid enough to say on the phone when he's in jail and the people who control the jail are listening. He's telling people out there, he's telling family members, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go on TV, do a whole thing about my birthday, make me look good, and try to make me look great in front of America, so America's going to say, well, how dare they do that, man? Look, he's a loving father. His kids love him. Look at the family. Everything is okay. No, it ain't. He's playing you if you buy it. That's what's going on, folks. So there he is. The prosecutor's saying, hey, no way, Jose, we ain't letting this guy out. Here's the deal. Eventually, if he can't get out, he may start telling people that who may be in his movies, because apparently at his freak show, or whatever he called it when he had these things going on, he was videotaping it. And everybody who was involved is on videotape. Now, those videotapes might start coming out, or names might start being released, unless someone goes to bat and says, hey, we want him out, because Hollywood and a whole lot of people in Sean P. Diddy's world were all involved in this little nasty, nefarious thing he had going on. It's bad. It's worse than bad. It's ugly. It's nasty. But Sean is trying to force people to say different things so he can get out of jail and on a $50 million bond. And don't kid yourself, folks. If you think he's going to the gray bar, he's going to bolt regardless of the $50 million. Just telling you my opinion, and my opinion only. But that's the way I see it when I'm watching what's going on with the perils of Sean P. Diddy Combs, who belongs in the Gray Bar Hotel. Much of the talk right now in the latter part stages of the Biden regime has to do with Ukraine and what Biden is doing. Most recently, you've probably heard that he said, okay, we're going to give Ukrainians long-distance missiles that shoot a long way. And then Russia said, hey, you do that, you start pouring missiles on our property, our land, our country, with your long-distance missiles, you're talking World War III. You don't want to hear the word World War III, folks. World War III is a very bad thing because back in the old days, there used to be a thing called mutually assured destruction, or MAD, it was called. And that was because if anybody wanted to start a war, it would be a nuclear war. And one country, if you started hurling nukes, the other country would hurl nukes back, and pretty soon the world ends. That's World War III, folks. Total thermonuclear destruction of the world. Don't kid yourself. World War III ain't World War II, ain't World War I, Korean War, Vietnam. World War III is everybody using everything they've got. And everything they got nowadays is thermonuclear weapons. So don't mention the word World War III. But here's what's happening in Ukraine. The United States approved Ukrainians to have long-distance missiles so they could fire into Russian territory. Russia doesn't like that. Ukrainians said, well, you're bringing in North Korean troops to fight against us. We got to protect ourselves. So what does Russia do, supposedly? Now, I don't know if this has been totally confirmed, but launching an intercontinental ballistic missile at Ukraine. Now, what's all this about? Well, the United States is giving Ukraine a boatload of money, billions and billions of dollars, to buy U.S. munitions. That means that countries or the companies in the United States, part of the military-industrial complex, the MIC, are making a lot of money, keeping their people working. They're turning out ammunition, they're turning out missiles, they're turning out tanks. You name it, we're providing it. So, the money's going to America and American companies. So someone is whispering in Joe Biden's ear, said, let's give them this, let's buy that, let's send over this. That's what's going on with the military-industrial complex. Now, Russia. Well, Russia's having a own problem of itself, sort of like we had in Vietnam era. People don't want to go into war, leaving the country and avoiding the draft, whatever. So they're launching some missiles over. So what's everybody doing? Everybody is testing the equipment they have to see how it works against the enemy. And the enemy is testing what they have to see if their equipment works against us. We are doing nothing but field testing of the weapons of war that we have. The Russians are field testing the weapons of war that they have. You don't have to like what I'm telling you. It's just you got to find out if the stuff we're making works. And the latest thing we're working on, and they, being Russia's working on, are drones. Because that's the next future of war, folks. Drones. Drones with weapons, namely explosives, that blow things up and people up. So we're just testing our weapons. We're testing our stuff, they're testing their stuff, seeing if it works. That way you know if you're not wasting money. But overall, we don't need another war. We need this thing stopped. Somebody's going to have to lay out the rules, say this is where it goes, this is where it stops, sort of like we did in Korea a long, long time ago. Will that happen soon? We can only hope so. But right now, two countries fighting like this, lobbying each other's with the weapons, not the best plan we've had. Maybe we find something better. And hopefully a new administration can do something a whole lot better than the previous one did. Well, one of the most difficult murder trials, probably in Indiana in a very long time, has finally come to an end. A jury convicted Richard Elan in the death, back 7 years ago, of two young ladies, a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old, Abby Williams and Liberty German, who were walking on the High Monon Trail and were, murdered. And ultimately it took them 7 years to charge a gentleman by the name of Richard Elan. This is down in a little town of Delphi, Indiana. He was a pharmacy technician, and he was finally arrested. They put evidence together on it. Well, the trial was down in Delphi, but the problem was the attorneys said, hey, we can't use a jury down here in Delphi. They had to come up to Allen County and pick a jury here and then send them down to Delphi and sequester them for the trial and the deliberations. The deliberations took about 4 days. Well, after 4 days of deliberation, hearing all the evidence, and apparently the evidence included some very graphic stuff that I don't want to get into, but 4 days later, the jury convicted Richard Elan of 2 felony murder counts and 2 counts of murder. 2 different things, 2 different statutes, how they're done. And he's going to be sentenced, I believe, in December. Well, the judge in the case was Fran Gould. Now, Fran is a Fort Wayne judge, who was picked down there as a separate judge to go down there and handle that trial down there with a Fort Wayne jury. But imagine being one of those people on that jury, having to be sequestered for all those weeks in a hotel in Delphi. I don't even know there are any, but with no TV, no radio, no access to anything, just yourself. I don't know if I'd want to do that. But sometimes you got to do what you don't want to do. Well, anyway, what happened was they convicted him. And and part of that was because of multiple confessions on the phone to talking to other relatives Mr. Elan was doing. Well, during the trial, his defense team said, hey, he's got some mental issues. And that was continually what they were hammering on, saying after he was taken into custody, he developed mental issues and has some mental problems. And I think what they're trying to convince the judge to say he is mentally ill, put him in a mental institution when the sentencing happens in the month of December. I don't know what sentencing will be, but I know this man is off the street. These little girls can never be brought back. But a sad story, it finally comes to an end after many years in Delphi, Indiana, with an Allen County judge and an Allen County jury. Now you know what happened. Well, what do you say we talk about sports for a moment? Namely football, since we are in the football season. And let's talk about college football. Now, everybody talks about the Big Ten, the SEC, but there's one interesting thing going on that maybe you haven't heard about. It's called the University of Colorado. The Buffaloes, the University of Colorado, now coached by Dion Sanders. Now, Dion obviously was a great football player. Some would argue that, but I would say he was. Ended up going into coaching at Jackson State and then Mississippi. But eventually he transferred to a D1 school, University of Colorado. And he wanted to be there with the Buffaloes to try to turn it around and make a name for himself. Division I? Well, back in those days, Colorado was in the Pac-10, but had to move conferences because the Pac-10 pretty much has disappeared. So they're in another conference, but that doesn't mean anything. Well, first year Dion, he started out 3-0, and everybody, his son was quarterbacking, and everybody was going whoop-de-whoop-de. But he ended up losing 6 games. Didn't have a good season. And as a result, the critics really came down on him and pounded him in the ground, frankly. Well, then he said, okay, we got this thing called the transfer portal. And that means students could transfer to whatever school they want to. You know, if they're in a big school, they want to go to Colorado, they were in a small school. Indiana, a lot of 13 of their players came in a transfer from, I believe it was James Mason. So I'm just saying, transfer portal, you can transfer. Well, as it turns out, a whole bunch of athletes decided they wanted to go play for the University of Colorado and Dion. Coach Dion, just the insurance commercials, the Aflac Duck, whatever, Dion. And they all started moving to Colorado, and frankly, Colorado started to improving. Well, believe it or not, Colorado's what? They've lost 2 games this year and won the rest of them. I mean, they've got a pretty good start going on. Matter of fact, they got a very good start going on because they just beat Utah 49-24. They are a serious team. And there's haters out there hating Dion, but there's haters out there for everybody. So, he's getting ready to do big things. Could be in the Final 12. Yeah, Colorado in the Final 12 with Dion. Imagine that. But here's the bigger thing. Let me talk about another school. LSU, Louisiana State University. Brian Kelly went from Notre Dame to LSU. He paid a boatload of money to turn LSU into a big powerhouse like they used to be in the SEC. Unfortunately, that ain't working out. And I'll tell you how bad it is. The LSU just lost to Florida. That's right, not Florida State, the lowly University of Florida. LSU lost to them. LSU is out of the football playoffs, folks. Their record is just nasty, just bad. I mean, there's no way they're going to be in the college football playoff. And Brian Kelly, my guess is the people who sponsor the football coaches, the alumni, they're going to say, no, we want this guy out. We want to bring somebody else in to put the life back into LSU, to make them a big-time school like they used to be. And I'm thinking, this is just me, I'm thinking the alumni is going to be flying up to Colorado, having a sit-down meeting with Dion and say, how much money is it going to take to bring you down to Baton Rouge? Dion's going to say, well, I'm here, I got my kids. Nah. Alumni is going to say, how many kids you want to bring? You want to bring all these kids down? Transfer portal? We'll get them all. We'll get everything taken care of. Everything will be taken care of. My guess is that Dion is ultimately going to be appointed coach of the LSU. Brian Kelly's going to be out. He may go to a pro team as an assistant coach or whatever, I don't know. And the University of Colorado, well, they'll have to find somebody else, because the goal of coaches is to get to the big programs, make the big money, and when you're on SEC, you want to be in the national run for the NCAA championship. Just telling you what's going on. Now you know a little bit more than you knew before, and that's my take on football today. Well, normally I would talk about politics, right? Well, not now. What do you say we chat about something a little bit more interesting, where you should consider retiring? That's right, for you folks getting older, maybe you want to consider retiring. Where should you go? What city should you go? Well, U.S. News and World Report, publication that I don't read, came out with their latest report on the top 10 cities in the United States where you should retire. Now, they did this based on city data rather than metro statistical data. So actually, they're going right to the cities itself, and here's what they came up with. Top 10 cities. Number 1, Naples, Florida. That does not surprise me. Hey, Naples is nice. I know a lot of people in this area who live down there in the winter. Snowbirds, Naples, pretty fine city. I got no problem. Number 2, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Once again, down south, weather's nice. Virginia Beach. It's a military community. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. And here's the one that did surprise me, though. Number 3, New York City? Who on their right mind would want to retire in New York City? Oh, maybe somebody does. Not going to argue. But it ain't cheap in New York City. And there's no seasons per se. You know, it's New York, New York. But hey, it's number 3. Number 4, Sarasota, Florida. I've been to that area. It's very nice on the Gulf Coast. Sand is very nice. But you notice most of the areas down there, of the top 10 areas, Florida is kind of the place to go. And, of course, that's where everybody wants to go. But number 5, this one kind of surprised me a little bit, Boise, Idaho. That's right, Boise, Idaho. They got a lot of recreational activities in the winter. I mean, in the winter. It's the capital of the state, Boise, Idaho. So that's number 5 on the list. Number 6, Raleigh, North Carolina. A lot of folks trying to go south, but they don't want to go all the way south. They just want to go a little bit south. And Raleigh, North Carolina is a pretty nice place. I got a good friend of mine who lives in a place called Hickory, North Carolina. So North Carolina is fine. Number 7, Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, they got a pro football team there, right there on the water. Military, heavy military there. It's about 1 million population, folks, so just be aware of that. But it is number 7 on the list. Number 8, my sister lives here in Huntsville, Alabama. Huntsville is the rocket capital of the world. And if you're interested in the rockets and the space stuff, well, that's the place. Huntsville, average income, $83,000. And it's number 8 on the list. So that's pretty decent place if you want to go down to Huntsville, Alabama. Stop in and see my sister while you're there. That'll work. All right, number 9, Charlotte, North Carolina. Once again, Charlotte, big airport hub is in Charlotte. And it's also a nice place, the old South, if you will. And it has about 826,000 people. So it's a pretty good-sized city. And that's number 9 is Charlotte. And number 10, are you ready? Number 10, according to U.S. News and World Report, is Fort Wayne, Indiana. You heard me right. Fort Wayne, Indiana moved up 4 positions from the 2024 ranking to number 10 this year. Last year, number 14, number 10, it's moving up. The reason is We got tons of festivals. We got tons of things to do. We got places to go. We have 4 seasons, for crying out loud. We got lakes up to the north of us, and I mean we got lakes. We got about everything you could want. Frankly, that's the reason I live here, because I like living here. We got everything you need, and I like the 4 seasons. So number 10 on the list, according to the folks at U.S. News and World Report, is Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now you've seen the top 10. Decide on where you want to live. Pick a city. There's all some good ones in there. And, of course, there's Fort Wayne, Indiana. Just saying, my pitch is done. Well, what do you say we talk about the Chicago Bears? Well, not the Chicago Bear football team, but where the Chicago Bears are planning on playing football. Well, for the longest time, they played at Soldier Field. I have been to Soldier Field. I watched them play against the Minnesota Vikings a long time ago. Fran Tarkington was running the Vikings. That tells you how long time ago it was. But anyway, Bears have played in Chicago, Soldier Field. They've tried to dress it up, but people still call it the Toilet Bowl. And they're looking for a different place. Now, the Bears, like every other team in the NFL, at least the ones in the Northland area, they want a dome stadium. That's it. Now, that's what they want. And they figure that the taxpayer, that would be you, would pay for it. Well, that's been kind of an issue. They plan to put a dome stadium and rebuild one over there by Soldier Field. That was the plan. Trouble is, they wanted the city and the taxpayers and the state to pony up money to do it. Well, ultimately, the city and the state are going, don't think you want to spend, we're talking billions of dollars here, folks. So the Bears said, okay, let's go out and buy a Arlington Park racetrack out there in the suburbs of Chicago. 326 acres. Beautiful place. Would have been perfect, except for one little problem. That little problem was the school districts in that area said, woohoo, money coming in, let's see how much we can get. And the Bears of the school districts in the Arlington Park area could not decide on how much taxpayer money or how much money the school systems in that area was going to take from the Bears. So the Bears were sitting on that property and doing nothing. And then they're saying, well, let's go back into downtown, let's go back into Chicago area, and let's see what we can do. Well, it's turned into a giant mess, but here's the latest thing they're looking at. The Bears are now looking at the old location of the Michael Reese Hospital. Now, that's on the south side of Chicago down there. I hate to use the word by the projects, but it's by the Stevenson I-55 and Lakeshore Drive, south of the big merchandise center down there. And the problem is, it's only 49 acres as compared to, say, 326 out in Arlington. And what they have downtown where the Bears Stadium is, Soldier Field. 49 acres. Can they put a dome stadium in there? And they pay for it themselves? They want the state money to come into this. I'm not really sure, but all I can tell you right now is the Bears do not have a home, haven't figured out where they're going to get a home, and are trying to get the taxpayer, that's you, me, and, well, the residents out of Illinois, to be honest, and the residents of Chicago, to pay for the Bears. Because they figure, well, they've been paying for them in the past, they'd pay for them now. People are getting a little bit more stingy with the money. So there's the story. Will the Bears locate into the Michael Reese Hospital deserted area, or they stay in Soldier Field, or will they finally go out to Arlington Park into the 326 acres out there? No one really knows. But the bottom line, now this is the most important part, the bottom line, the Chicago Bears say they want a dome. The problem is, who's going to pay for that dome? Are they going to put a dome on Soldier Field? I doubt it. Look, could be wrong. But where will the Bears locate? Will they still be in downtown Chicago on the shoreline? Well, that's where they think it looks cool on TV. But like many other places, folks have gone out to the hinterlands, to the suburbs. Will the Bears do that? It's anybody's guess. So right now, you know the latest. If you're a Chicago Bears fan, where the Bears going to go? Nobody knows. And who's going to pay for it? The Bears still want you to pay for it. Let's see what happens. That's all I know for the Chicago Bears, so a little something different. You've got it right here on The Pat White Show. Well, back on October 25th of 1994, a lady by the name of Susan Smith took her 2 young children, a 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alexander, put them in the back of her car, let it roll down into a ramp into a lake in Union, South Carolina. After she did that, she watched the entire thing happen over 6 minutes, watched the car fill with water, drowning her sons and sink into the bottom of the lake. And then what did she do? Well, she ran to a house and then said that a black man had stolen her car with her twins inside, and the homeowners called 911. I remember all this happening. And a lot of people did. A lot of people my age watched it on TV and saw the entire thing going on, saw her being interviewed, but there was something that you saw it on TV, you went, something ain't right. Something just isn't right. And her husband was by her side, trying to comfort her, doing the best he could, but something just didn't seem right. And I remember my young kids back then. This was 1994. My daughter was probably about, my oldest daughter was probably about 10 years old. My other one was 9 years old, sitting there watching all this stuff going on. Oh, her children died. Oh, and she was saying a black man kidnapped her car and her kids. All right. Ultimately, the truth came out. Ultimately, they found out that Susan Smith had literally taken her kids, strapped them in the car, and drowned them. Well, she was taken to court, and she was found guilty and put in the Gray Bar Hotel. Well, recently, she's been trying to get out. And she just had a parole hearing, in case you didn't know about this. But before the parole hearing, she called her ex-husband. That's her ex-husband because he divorced her, and said, hey, I want to get out. Be okay if I get out, you don't say anything? He went, what the hell are you talking about? Well, he showed up at the hearing, and he told the people on the hearing council, don't let this woman out. She's dangerous. They looked over her record in prison, and she committed about every bad thing you could possibly do, including she was sleeping, and I wanted to use the word kind, sleeping with one of the guards. She was evil. She's trying to say, oh, no, I'm not evil. I'm mentally ill. Well, her parole has been denied, in case you didn't know. That's right, Susan Smith is going to spend time back in the Gray Bar Hotel, and hopefully she never gets out. Is she mentally ill? Probably. But she killed her 2 sons. She said, oh, it's postpartum depression. Okay, that happens. I'm not going to argue about that. But I don't think this was that. Not when you run to someone and say, oh, a black man carjacked me, hurt my kids. Nah, just saying. Susan Smith is still in jail, and a lot of people are saying, good. Well, if you've been watching the media, you've heard about a trial going on in New York City involving the death of a homeless man by a former United States military enlisted individual. His name is Daniel Penny. I believe he was a Marine. I could be wrong, but I think that's what he was. He was on the New York subway. Now, if you've ever been to New York City, and I've been there more times than I care to admit, riding the subway can be a chore. More often than not, everything is fine. It's the underground. It's the way the millions of people get around Manhattan, because you can't drive in Manhattan, trust me. And yet you're going to get some ne'er-do-wells showing up on the subway as well. Most of the time, it can happen late at night, but during the day it can happen, and this time it did. Daniel Penny was riding the subway. I can't tell you the reason why, but a gentleman gets on, and the gentleman is a homeless man. And he gets on there and he said, I'm going to kill somebody. He was on drugs. Don't know what it was. Don't know what the situation. But Daniel Penny said, hey, I got people here on this train I've got to protect. The military training and background, well, he stepped in and he gets the guy in a headlock. Now, there's a lot of camera stuff, body cams, whatever, people saying things. Some people have lied under oath in this particular trial where Daniel Penny is being charged with murder of the homeless man. And it's been a very interesting trial still going on. The decision has not yet to be made. Jury has not yet been put in to make their decision. But some interesting stuff that has come out. Well, Alvin Bragg is the prosecutor. He's the same one who went after Donald Trump. Same one holding up the result, the verdict, well, not the verdict, but the punishment section, given to Trump until Trump's term is over in 2029. This is a political game that's being played. Well, in the Daniel Penny, it's another political incident. Trial was going on, and they brought in an ME who talked about a physical strangulation situation that, frankly, nobody had ever heard of. So the defense puts out another ME who said, I've been doing this a long time, and I don't know what the hell that person was talking about. Whatever it is, it doesn't exist. This goes to show you why this is a political trial. And they're just trying to go after a guy who, well, served his country and is just trying to live his life instead of being put into jail for God knows how many years for literally saving people on a subway train. The guy was on drugs, homeless, got on there, threw off his coat and said, I'm going to kill somebody. That's what happened. And nobody's standing around going, oh, I guess that's okay. No, it's not. Alvin Bragg is a disgrace to the city of New York, and Daniel Penny should be given his freedom. He was defending the people on the subway car. He did the right thing. Yeah, things didn't turn out quite the way he'd hoped, but he was doing his best, and still we had people lying on the stand because a gentleman said, well, the prosecutor told me I wouldn't get charged with another crime if I said what they want me to say. Coercion of witnesses? Yeah. That's what's going on in this trial. An ME giving false testimony that another ME said, I don't even know what he's talking about. No idea. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. How will the Daniel Penny trial end up? I do not know. I'm hoping the good people in New York City look at this and say, hey, not guilty, Your Honor, and sets him free and puts this thing behind us. One more little episode with a corrupt district attorney, Alvin Bragg. Yes, his name comes up more than once. Let's see what happens. Maybe this guy should be sanctioned by the bar. Just my opinion. Well, here's the latest media hubbub going on involving a couple of people from one of those alphabet networks, namely MSNBC. Morning Joe Scarborough, I think he was former Republican congressman, and his bride, the lovely and talented Mika Brzezinski, daughter of Zygmunt Brzezinski. Well, if you watch them, and I don't think many people do, but if you do happen to watch the Morning Joe show, they have been about as brutal and as nasty as you could be toward the likes of Donald Trump during the campaign. They called him every single name in the book, and probably some that weren't in the book. But since the election is done, and since Donald Trump was the first Republican to score 76 million votes, never been done before, got a clear mandate from the American public that they want him, and Kamala was, well, left out of the cold, if you will. So what happened was Morning Joe and his bride went down to Florida, Mar-a-Lago, to visit Donald Trump in person, the first time they have met with him in 7 years. Now they're saying, well, why'd you go down there? Well, we went down there to chat, to see, if we could find common ground between the two of us. And they said, well, the president sat there and seemed very interested in what we had to say. See if we can't find something we both agree on. And he's sitting there the entire time saying, oh, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Oh, I look forward to it. Whatever. I wasn't there in the meeting, don't know. I'm just summarizing here. But they said they talked about topics like abortion, mass deportation, threats on retribution against political opponents. Not that the Democrats, having been doing threats on Republicans big time for a long time, but hey, we can do it to you, but you can't do it to us, is pretty much what they're saying. But here's something else. Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski are not, I repeat, not journalists. Most of the people you see on things like The View and whatever shows you watch, they are not trained journalists. They are nothing more than opinionists. They are people spouting off what they believe because they think it works for them, and they're taking a check from whatever network they're working for. They are not trained journalists. Unfortunately, trained journalists are basically doing the same thing as Morning Joe does, which is sad. But, needless to say, they met. So the first time in 7 years they went down there, and now they're being called traitors. Shame on them. How dare they go down and see the enemy, and they're saying, hey, he's a leader. America wanted him. Here's what Joe and Mika are really worried about. They're worried about their ratings. They're worried about being kept on the air. They're worried about being tossed off the air. And if they get tossed off the air, who's going to touch them and put them back on the air? Nobody. Well, nobody I can think of, unless they want to start something up on their own network or on the internet. Who knows? They could. Is it going to be profitable and is it going to be successful? Don't know. But I can tell you this. By the fact they went down there, they are showing they are worried. They are scared. Now, they're going to keep hammering Trump? Yeah, my guess is they will. But now they're getting worried, and now the members of all the other nasty media are going, why did they do that? Well, they did it because they're trying to protect themselves. They don't want to be extinguished, and they're trying to figure out which way to make sure they aren't. Just my take on it, and now you know. Well, the election is over. Donald Trump won with one of the biggest margin a Republican has ever received in a presidential vote. He got a lot of votes. And now he believes he has a mandate because he swept the people. So he's now appointed a whole bunch of folks, and I mean the list is long, and the list is large, and you can see it right there. Seeing all these people he put, and Congress is going to fight like heck against some of these people, I understand. But two of them are very interesting. One is Elon Musk, and the other is Vivek Ramaswamy. They have been appointed to run the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, most people are sitting around going, what the hell is that? Well, their job is pretty simple. Find the programs that are running, that are not supposed to be running because they've been sunset by Congress. They do these 5-year programs, 2-year programs, 10-year programs, whatever. They're done according to the funding, but they're still getting funded. That's correct. They are still receiving money from the government because, well, no one wants to stop it. No one wants to say, you people are out of a job, pack up, go away. Politicians don't want to do that. Yeah, they don't want to say, no, we're getting somebody laid off because, you see, it's votes. This is all about votes, power, and control. That's what it is. So Trump has appointed Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to go in there and work with the Office of Management and Budget, find these programs, and apparently there's a lot of them, that are still running after their funding has run out because the government still keeps paying them. Now, their plan is to eliminate a lot of stuff, and could it raise the unemployment rate? Yeah, it could. Could it clean out Washington a whole lot? Yeah, it could do that too. So let's see what happens. Let's see what they can do. Will they get approved by the Congress? Well, I'm figuring that Trump's got a mandate, folks. He has got a big-time for the people mandate saying we want change and we want this mess cleaned up. And let's see if he can do it. You got to remember something. Trump was elected by the vast majority of people in the United States who said, this is turning out to be nonsense. Somebody has to go in there and start cleaning out this mess, better known as the swamp. First time Trump tried when he got elected in 2016, put the wrong people in. They were rhinos, same old people, just in different spots. Well, now he's putting in a whole brand new group of people that the politicians hate because they're not politicians. They're regular people like you and me. So let's see what they can do. Let's see what happens, and let's see what happens with the new Department of Government Efficiency and see if they can clean up the mess. So, have you ever heard of what is called the 4B movement? I'd never heard of it until after the election. Well, according to the source I read, BuzzFeed, if you rely on that, it is a women's group refusing to have sex, marry, or birth children with men. Which got me to thinking, who are they going to birth children with then? I don't know. Anyway, that's the group. And what they're out there is they're saying, hey, we don't like the way the election turned out. We think it's wrong. We think that somebody was put in there and who we don't like. And he's going to take away our ability to apparently get abortions. Well, you know, that whole thing is just bothersome when you think about it. Because when you think about abortion, you figure, this involves three things, three individuals. The woman, obviously. The man, who's responsible for the fact that she's pregnant. And the baby she's carrying. Those are three items you got to consider. But anyway, this women's group says that They don't feel comfortable bringing children into the world because they're saying, hey, it's enough. We don't want to have any children. We don't want to have sex with men. And I'm going, okay, yeah, maybe you don't. I've seen some of the women, and I'm going, okay, well, get a cat. You'll be fine. Here's one that one woman said, I honestly don't feel comfortable bringing a child into this world. I've seen everything that I need to see, and it's enough. Okay, ma'am, if you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. But first, you got to get a boyfriend. That'd help. Here's another one who said, I feel like over half America just told women their lives are less important than the cost of eggs and gas. That's dramatic, but that's literally how this feels. Majority of people in America don't feel the way you do. Now, if you want to use abortion as your birth control, that's not good. There's other ways out there that you could utilize that, but that's just my suggestion. What I'm saying to you is simple. If you want to take the attitude saying, I don't want to marry, I don't want to give birth, fine. This is America. You can do whatever you feel. But you have to understand something. Donald Trump said one thing about abortion. It doesn't belong in the federal system. The Constitution does not, I repeat, does not address that. And in the Constitution, anything that's not in the Constitution, the framers said it belongs to the states. Okay, everybody understand that? Framers said if it ain't in the Constitution, it belongs to the states, and that's where it is now. Now, every state has a right to vote on this. And some states are saying, yeah, we want to have it, and some states are saying no. It varies by state. But think about it this way. If that's what you want to do is say, I don't want to be involved with men, well then, ladies, get a cat. Maybe you'll be happy wherever you may be. Just one person's opinion, and that one person is me.
Happy